Welcome back to Around the Cauldron, where we talk theology, philosophy, and everyday life as a modern witch. My name is Megan, and I'm glad that you've joined me today. If you're ready to hop into the show, grab some coffee, pull up a seat, and join me around the cauldron. Hello, everyone. Let me put this away. How are you? I hope you're doing all right. I hope that if you are on the West Coast that is currently on a fire, that you are safe and that you are doing the best you can. The whole West Coast basically has been in my prayers and devotions for the last several days. I still have family in California right now. So it's intense. It's awful, but it's happening. So at this point, all I can do is keep everyone in my prayers and my devotions. So if you are there, I hope you are safe. I hope you are doing well, or as well as you can. So yeah, that's got me kind of weird today, I suppose, just because I still have family in the area. They're nowhere near the fires. I mean, they are, but they're not in any immediate danger. They're not under any evacuation orders or anything like that. But, you know, it's still kind of nerve-wracking. I have friends in Oregon still that are really, really close to those fires. So we're just going to deal with it and play it by ear and see how everything goes. Hi, Jezebel. So today, if you can't tell by the title, we are talking about ethics in tarot, but I do have a few announcements before we get started. The first announcement is that I did pick the winner of the giveaway. However, I haven't heard back from them yet. So Hannah, if you are hearing this, please check the email. Please check your email, the one that you used to submit your entry. If I don't hear back from the winner of the giveaway by September 17th, I will have to pick a new winner. So, Hannah, if you're hearing this, please check your email. Hi, curses and prayers. Hello. The next announcement is, don't forget that I updated my shop at the beginning of this month. You know, I don't even know where I was going with that. My shop update, yes, my shop update was at the beginning of the month. I added some really awesome products, some new altar cloths, some new headbands, and different things like that. So check that out. The link is in the description and in the show notes. Also, a side note to that, I started another channel, but it has absolutely nothing to do with witchcraft or paganism at all. It's a crochet channel because crochet is one of my passions in life. So I don't have a link in the description yet for those watching on YouTube, but I will put a link in the description and in the show notes. If anyone is interested, it's going to be crochet related, craft related, different things like that. So not necessarily related to witchcraft or paganism in general, just another thing that I enjoy doing. And then the next thing is a big shout out to all of my patrons over on Patreon. My Patreon community is growing and I so appreciate all of you. Let's see if I can remember everyone's names this time, since last time I forgot to do my shout out until the end of the episode. So thank you, Jess, Rose, Renee, Holly, Blue, Hillary, Angie, Bonnie, Lee, and Leli, and Magical Crafting. I think that's everyone. If I forgot you, I'm so sorry. But I do appreciate your support and the love that the community has really blossomed, I guess you could say. So if you're interested in joining me over on Patreon, it's patreon.com/roundthecauldron. For as little as $1 a month, you get patron exclusive content and perks, and you help support the channel and me doing this YouTube and podcast thing, plus my website and all of that other stuff. This is also your reminder that if you're watching here live on the live stream, make sure you hit the thumbs up button. If you're watching later, give the video a thumbs up. Podcast listeners, leave a review wherever you listen so other witches can find me. Okay, so ethics in tarot. I need to give a disclaimer before I move into this topic. Everyone's ethics and moral compass is different. Everything that I discuss in this episode come from my own opinions, okay? I want everyone to think about their own ethics, their own moral compass, whether you read tarot or not. This is something that can evolve over time too. So please keep that in mind, that this episode is based solely on my opinion and my own experiences reading tarot professionally for however long it is that I've been doing it. This topic was also voted on Patreon. That's one of the perks of joining me on Patreon, is you get to vote on what we talk about next. So thank you, patrons, for voting for this topic. However, the idea for this topic stemmed from a discussion that we had on Discord. And that's the main reason that I wanted to talk about this. Also, in my research for this particular episode, because I go through and I look at other people's YouTube videos and blogs and content just to get a feel for what's already out there, there isn't much. There isn't much discussion on the ethics of reading tarot. And I mean, it could be a good thing. Maybe everyone's on the same page, but it could also be a not so good thing. So I want to talk about what brought this discussion up on Patreon. And it was someone shared a post from a Facebook group that they're in where they do like hypothetical tarot readings. All right, and I want to read it to you because it's important that you understand the context of this particular discussion and why I felt like talking about tarot ethics is important. So the post that was shared from the Facebook group says, a man asks you for a reading. He has a 16-year-old son who he is concerned about. His wife passed away when she gave birth to their son, and he is the only child they had. His son has been unusually quiet for the past 3 months. He has always been talkative, so this is odd. He has tried talking to him about it, but his son says nothing is wrong. His grades in school are great. His question for you, the reader, is, why is my son so quiet lately? You shuffle the cards, cut the deck, and you draw 3 cards. The cards that you draw are the 5 of Swords, the King of Wands, the 5 of Swords, the King of Swords, and the 7 of Wands. You also draw a shadow card, and it's the Moon. What do the cards tell you, and what do you tell him? I think these sorts of situations are amazing learning tools because it can help you figure out how you would interpret the cards in different situations with different questions. I don't have an issue with the questions, totally fine. I don't even necessarily have an issue with this other person's interpretation, whatever, they can interpret the cards however they want. But I do have an issue with something that they say in their interpretation, and hopefully you can pick up on it because I'm going to read it to you. The King of Swords thinks this issue is simply behavioral, involving straightforward teen bullying and the need for remedial action by school authorities. However, the issue runs far deeper and will test his expectations and unconditional love for his child. His son, represented by the 7 of Wands, has recognized that he is gay and worries that his father will not take his revelation well. He's definitely being bullied at school by the homophobic jocks who suspect his homosexuality, although he has desperately tried to conceal his natural affinity from his classmates and his authoritarian father. The 7 of Wands, his son, has sought counseling in secret from his church's progressive counselor and is working up the courage to talk with his father. He knows he must be true to himself and desperately hopes his father will support him no matter his choice. That's a valid interpretation. Like, that's totally fine. My issue when it comes to this interpretation is something that they said. They essentially potentially outed this person's child. So, outing a person is not okay. Even when you're reading tarot, see, this is where I come into it with the ethics. Like, is it ever okay to out someone in a reading like this? Because you're reading the cards. You're telling the person that's asking the question what the cards say. But is there a better way to go about that situation? What would you do in that situation? How would you answer that question? So, that is where the ethics come in. And when I'm talking about ethics in tarot, I'm talking about, what questions or situations do you answer or do readings about? Do you avoid particular topics? Are there certain questions or words that you tend to avoid? And also, how do you answer those difficult questions while maintaining your ethical boundaries? So if you think about the interpretation that I just read to you, how could you change that to fit in line with a more ethical style of reading tarot? Because for me, the interpretation is fine, but the delivery of the interpretation is not ethical in my opinion, because you don't want to potentially out someone without their permission. So the interpretation that I just read, for me, if I was going to change it, I would just say something like, the son is struggling with their identity and who they are. They are working through some personal issues. They are seeking help from people outside of the family that they trust to offer a new perspective. And when they are ready, they will come to you and talk to you, basically. I think that still answers the father's question without doing potential damage to his relationship with his son or potential physical harm between him and his son. Because the reading also mentioned that the father was an authoritarian and the son was afraid that the father wouldn't take it well. So I think we need to read the situation and read into it like that so that we can deliver the messages from the card in a tactful, honest manner without dipping into revealing information that could be potentially damaging. So, hello everyone. Oh, I see a bunch of you here in the chat. Hi. So there are a few different things that I really want to touch on. And the first one is that when I read tarot, I'm not going to say we, because this doesn't necessarily apply for everyone. If it applies to you and if it resonates with you, then perfect. If not, then, you have your own ethics in the way that you do things. But as a reader myself, I have some things that I personally do and I personally believe. The first thing that I want to talk about is the tarot reading disclaimer that we see in a lot of places. On my own personal readings that I do for my clients, I have that disclaimer at the bottom of the first page. And I don't have it memorized off the top of my head, but it basically says, due to laws in some countries, I have to mention that tarot readings are essentially curios. They are for entertainment purposes only. I am not qualified to give medical, legal, or any other professional advice. No advice is given. The reader takes responsibility for their own decisions and actions, and I am not held responsible for what they do. It seems like a lot, and it seems unnecessary in some places, I guess, because you might think like, well, duh, the tarot reader is obviously not responsible for the person's actions because they didn't make the person do anything. But we live in a world today where when someone screws up, if they can place the blame on someone else, they will. And in the court system here in the States, the tarot reader could be held liable in the same way that, you know, a medical professional could be held liable if they told a patient to take a certain prescription drug and it turned out bad. So I think that the tarot reading disclaimers are necessary. It's a protection for the reader and the client. Mostly, I think it's a protection for the reader. But this disclaimer is also part of the reason why I don't necessarily speak in absolutes. Another part of my disclaimer for my own tarot readings that I do for clients is that nothing that I say or nothing that the cards say is set in stone. And this is because I believe that while we may have a destiny and we may have an end point in our life that we will reach no matter what we do, the way we get there is always changing. So the future is not necessarily set in stone. What I say might change. So that's another part of my disclaimer, because I believe that we do have free will in our day-to-day actions. Whether or not someone else believes that is up to them, but for my own readings that I do for other people, I do put that in there too, just so that they know where I'm coming from in that respect. The next one that I have listed here in my notes is, again, that no answers are given in absolutes, especially if the question is in regards to medical, legal, or any other professional advice at all. I don't like speaking in absolutes because I believe that we have free will in that respect and that we can change our immediate or even our future 10 years from now based on the actions that we perform today. So I don't like to speak in absolutes. The way that I read tarot and the way that I find as ethical for me to read tarot is to read the cards in a manner that makes sense if the person was to continue on the path that they're currently on. So if you change nothing about what you're currently doing, this is what's going to happen, or this is what might happen, or this is the path that you might be going down. I don't like to speak in absolutes in everyday life either, and it's probably just a personal preference of mine, and that could be different for everyone else. Every other reader out there is going to have their own preferences. I'll flip my notes over. And then when we respond to difficult questions, when I respond to difficult questions, I've had some tarot readings that I have done for other people that have just like punched me in the gut. They hit me so hard. Even though the reading wasn't about me, I could just feel it. And there have been times where I do a reading and I plan on doing a couple more throughout the day and I just can't because one reading has taken everything out of me. And those situations, those readings can be hard to convey to the person asking the question or to the person getting the reading. So when I approach these readings, I approach them first of all with common sense in mind. You know, is what I'm going to say harmful in any manner? Can the words that I use be perceived negatively? Can they cause physical harm? Might they cause psychological harm? You know, there's a lot of different things that I think about as I'm typing up the readings that I do for people. And the first thing that I always go to is use my common sense. How would I feel if I got this reading and this was my reading and it was written the way I wrote it? it might be hard to swallow. I'm not going to, I don't sugarcoat my readings. I am honest and I tell it like I see it, but there is a method and sort of a skill in writing tactfully and making sure that you are delivering the message in an appropriate manner. I also want to touch on the fact that your delivery method for your readings might change depending on who you're reading for. I have an example from my friend. Her and I have been friends since we were like 12 years old, okay? And she has come to me in the past and said, hey, I need you to do a reading for me. Will you do a reading for me? And, you know, sometimes I know the context, sometimes I don't, and I will give her the reading. But when I deliver a reading to her, it's never, oh my goodness, the delivery is different because we've been friends for so long. And the last one that I did for her, I gave her my reading, I gave her my interpretation, I showed her pictures of the cards, and she basically was like, yeah, you know, that's spot on. And then she said, I didn't need the cards to tell me that because you would have just told me that. I'm like, well, yes, you know, but sometimes we need an outside perspective, I guess. Sometimes we need that extra little push. So if you have a deeper connection with the person that you're reading for, you might not even need the cards. Once you can tap into that intuition and that knowing, then you may be able to deliver a message to the person you're reading for without even pulling any cards. There could also be a difference in reading with people if, you know, you're reading for someone that you've read for in the past versus a new person, someone you've never read for before. The person that you've read for in the past might be okay with more casual language, whereas I wouldn't necessarily use more casual language with a newer client because I haven't been able to gauge that relationship and gauge how they're going to react or what method of communication works best for them. So that's something to keep in mind too, is as far as your delivery of tarot readings. In Discord, I asked if anyone else had anything that they wanted me to touch on. Someone mentioned tarot scams. Tarot scams piss me off. What I mean by a tarot scam is it's the same thing as like someone scamming you for spell work. You know, you go to someone and say, hey, I need a cleansing done. So they do a cleansing and then they tell you, oh no, you're cursed. I'm going to need an extra $5,000 to remove this curse. The same thing happens with tarot readings. I mean, you can go to someone and get a general reading and then your reading is done, you've given them your money, and then they say, oh wait, I see something else. But it's going to take a little longer to interpret and I have to pull more cards. You need to pay me more money. That happens too. And it's not okay. So if you are a reader and you do that to your clients, you have no business calling yourself a tarot reader at all. That is exploiting people's fears and people's need to unveil the unknown. And I liken that aspect to my daughter. My daughter loves those little surprise bags that you get. They call them blind bags. You know, they're little bags, they have toys in them, but you have no idea what's in them until you open them. And I remember as a kid when my mom used to work at the Sanrio store in our local mall, they had something that was similar and I always wanted one. And it wasn't necessarily that I wanted what was inside. I wanted to reveal what was hidden. I wanted to see what was inside because it was hidden to me. And I think that goes with tarot. When someone is reading for you and then they say, wait, I see something else, but you need to pay me more money, chances are the person's going to pay you more money so that they can reveal what is hidden. I think that's very exploitative and completely unethical. On the other side, if you get readings, definitely watch out for things like that. If someone does that to you and says that they need more money to reveal the rest of the message to you, walk away. Walk away, wash your hands of the situation, and then maybe if you still feel like you need a tarot reading, go to someone you trust. It's unfortunate that it happens, but it does happen. And it's awful. I also want to talk about charging what you're worth. So, I'm a professional tarot reader. I also sell my own projects, my own products, because I crochet. And I have always struggled with what to charge for my services and for my products. It is unethical of me, in my opinion, to charge outrageous amounts of money for something that's only going to take me maybe an hour to do. This is why for my smaller readings, like my month at a glance reading, it's $10 because it takes me maybe an hour and then I can get it typed up and get it sent off. But on the other hand, my yearly reading is like $80 because of how many cards I pull, the amount of time it takes me to do that reading, and the energy that goes into it. So I don't want readers to feel like they can't charge for their work. Your time and your energy are valuable, okay? It's not free. I would never expect an artist to spend so many hours on something and to just give it to me for free. I would never expect to, hire someone for some sort of work and them not charge me, right? Your time, your energy, and your skill are valuable. But you have to walk a fine line between what is ethical to charge versus what you deserve. So if I go to someone who has been reading tarot for like a year, right, and they want to charge me $200 for a reading, probably not going to pay them $200 for a reading. But if I go to someone who's been reading the cards for decades and who has decades of experience, they have all of, these reviews and everything to back up their experience and their skills, I would be more inclined to pay that person more money because they have more experience and they've dedicated their time to learning and practicing and honing their skill. It's the same thing for working a regular job. You have entry-level pay and then you have CEO level pay. I think it's the same thing. But charging an exorbitant amount of money for a tarot reading just because you can, just because people will pay for it, I think that's a little unethical. And it's not something that I think I could ever do. On the same lines is tarot classes. There are some people out there who have some amazing classes on tarot, and I'm not knocking tarot classes. Some people need that kind of setting to learn how to read the cards or just to learn in general. That's fine. But my issue comes when people are charging thousands of dollars for so-called tarot master classes. Like, what are you doing that is worth thousands of dollars that these people can't just go and find on the internet or on books, or in books, or from other teachers? Some of those classes get super expensive. And part of me feels like the classes that are super expensive are only super expensive because of the person's name that's tied to it, which, people have to be compensated for their time and their energy and their effort that goes into putting these classes together. But it's a fine line between an outrageous amount of money being worth it or being charged just because they can. So if you're going to take a tarot class, I would be cautious. That's all I'm going to say about that. But as far as other ethical issues, I think, you know what, I'm just going to go through, I made a list of my tarot ethics that I came up with, like on the spot when I was writing my notes. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to talk with them, or talk about them. So number 1 on my list is that I only read for the person that's present. If someone comes to me and tells me that they want me to read cards for their, you know, their boyfriend or their girlfriend or their mom, but that other person's not present, I won't read the cards, because I don't know what's going to be revealed, and I don't know if the person that's asking the question is only asking the question to get insight into the other person's life, to do damage, to be nosy. You know, I won't read for another person unless that person is also present. Number 2, I already mentioned this, but I will not give any specific advice about professional issues, medical issues, legal issues, anything that I am not qualified to give advice on or to tell someone what to do. The same way that I wouldn't expect a lawyer to tell me what medication to take. The lawyer's not qualified to give me medical advice. I'm not qualified to give medical advice or legal advice or any other professional advice like that. So I won't do it. Like I won't tell you what doctor you should see or what medication you should take. The third one I have is that I will not read for the same person on the same subject more than once a week. And this is for a couple of reasons. The first reason is because that takes a lot of time and energy for me if I'm constantly reading for the same person every single day. Also, it introduces bias, and sometimes it can introduce too much context. If this person is constantly talking to me about what's going on in their life, I don't feel like I could accurately read the cards for them because I will be influenced by the things that they're telling me. Number 4, I will not give specific, potentially damaging information. So this goes back to the original discussion that we had on Discord, where the reader essentially told the father that his son was gay and he was wrestling with that. I will never give out specific, potentially damaging information. In that particular case, if I felt like a reading was telling me that a person's child was hiding the fact that they were gay from the parent and they were struggling with it, I would just bring up, you know, that the child is struggling with their identity and they're not feeling comfortable, and, you know, maybe you should just do what you can to reassure your child, to let them know that you're there for them no matter what, okay? That goes for other situations too. If I feel like what I'm revealing or what I'm seeing could be potentially damaging, there are methods of wording that information so that specific details aren't given, but the person asking the question is given enough context to investigate on their own. Because sometimes, yes, I am the messenger, but I'm also the filter. And I need to use my awareness, my common sense, and my critical thinking skills to figure out if what I am revealing could be potentially damaging, either mentally, physically, emotionally, to anybody involved in whatever the reading is about. Number 5, my readings are confidential. No one knows what goes on between the person that I give a reading to. I do the reading, nobody's in the room with me. I type it up, nobody is around me as I'm typing it up. They might see the cards. However, I'm the only person in my house that knows how to read the cards, or that is even interested in reading the cards. I send the readings either via email to whichever email the person tells me to send it to, or via snail mail. I can put it in the mail and send it that way if they really want me to. I will always keep your confidentiality and your privacy to myself. That is extremely important to me, and I feel like it would be unethical to reveal it to anyone else. The reason that I'm okay with revealing the interpretation that sparked this discussion is because it was hypothetical. That's what the tarot group on Facebook was about, is they were hypothetical readings, hypothetical situations, so that people can practice their interpretations. Number 6 on my list of my own ethics is I will always be honest. And this goes along with number 7. I am not here to judge you for your situation, for what the cards tell me, or for how you feel about a certain situation, or what you're asking me. It's not my place to judge you. I am simply the vessel that the message is coming through. I am here to be honest with you, and as I said, I'm not going to sugarcoat the readings, but I'm also not going to make them punch you in the gut if they are bad or have some sort of bad news or potentially troubling situations. All right. So those, my papers are flying everywhere. Those are my ethical considerations. I am pretty sure I missed some of my own ethical considerations because it's not something that I actively think about. We as people act and think and speak without thinking about our own ethics. We don't think about what it is that we're going to say before we say it in terms of, is this ethical? Should I say this? Either we do or we don't. So I might end up writing up a whole blog post specifically about my opinions on tarot ethics, and maybe I'll think of some more ethical considerations. But those are the big ones that jumped out at me when I was writing my notes. So the main thing that I want you to take away from this is, if you are a tarot reader, think about your own ethics as you read tarot. Think about what kind of questions you avoid or you refuse to answer. Think about situations that you would rather not read the cards about, or even people that you would rather not read the cards for. Then think about why. That's part of building your own ethical standards, I guess, when it comes to reading the cards for other people and even for yourself. If you don't read tarot, then think about if you were to get a reading from someone, how would you want them to behave? What sort of ethical standards would you expect that person to have? And it is completely fine to ask them before you get a reading from them. If someone were to email me before they bought a reading from my shop and said, hey, I'd like to get a reading from you, but I'm concerned about XYZ. What are your thoughts? Would you consider reading about this? How do you handle privacy? How do you handle confidentiality? Okay, sure. Let me tell you. I am 100% okay with that. And if someone comes back and tells you after you've asked them about their ethical standards or how they read or certain situations that they will or won't read, and they tell you that it's none of your business, walk away and get a tarot reading from someone else. Because if they can't reveal to you their ethical standards and their code of conduct, I guess, then you shouldn't get a reading from them. So that's it for today. I hope I was able to bring a little bit of light into the discussion on ethics and tarot. By now, I would imagine that we would all sort of be on the same page. We don't want to reveal personal information. We don't want to reveal potentially damaging information, but it's always good to think about it for yourself and how you might react in certain situations. So if you're going to stick around for the bonus section, I will talk to you in a second. If you're not, I will see you next time. Podcast listeners, I will talk to you soon. Okay, I noticed that there was quite a chat going on. I like seeing that. I like seeing everyone interact with everyone else too. I need some water though, because it is hot. So I'm going to scroll back through the chat and, see what's going on and say hello to everyone. Jezebel, curses and prayers. Hi, Dindrain. Hi, Ari. Is it Ari or Ari? I'm not sure. I know people that pronounce it different, spelled the same way. Hi, Bex. Let's see. Okay, so Jezebel said that they seem to remember that there for a year or two ago, there was a tag on ethics and tarot. There might have been. I know there are a few videos on YouTube that talk about ethics and tarot, but again, they were older. So I wasn't sure if it was still something that people were talking about. And I definitely don't see it talked about very much in the online spaces that I'm in. But then I don't know if it's just because my social circle is really small or if I'm just not encountering those sorts of conversations. Right. Yeah, you don't out a child to their parents. I am not gonna lie. When I was younger, my best friend at the time, she's a lesbian. I won't say who she is because I'm not going to out anybody. But she is out. But I remember that I was so removed from the situation because I was used to it that sometimes that's how I would introduce her to people, which is awful. Like looking back at that now, that is awful and I should have never done anything like that, even if she was okay with it. That's just not something that you do. And I'm really glad I've been able to grow as a person like that. Like I would never out a stranger, but at that point in time I was like, oh, everybody already knows it's totally fine. But that's not something for me to, that's not my story to tell. And I will admit that to you, that I used to do that. But I've grown as a person. I'm almost 30, and I am able to admit my past mistakes in that respect. Let's see. Jezebel said, don't put your dog in the microwave oven. I'm not sure that I get that reference. I don't think I get that reference. Curses and Prayers said that there are times when they see the cards in their mind before I draw them. That happens for me too. Not all the time, but sometimes. And it's uncanny when it happens, but it makes sense. I've been reading the cards for so long, and when I read cards, I'm very in tune with my own energy, the energy that's in the cards, plus the energy of the person that I'm reading for. So it does make sense. Let's see. Ari said, it's such a shame, but yes, harsh reality is the witchcraft community still has scammers and bad people in it. definitely something to make more people aware of. You're absolutely right. And they said that they're glad that I brought up the classes. Definitely hold the same opinion as me on these classes. Yeah, so the classes, I mean, I'm on the fence about it. I don't personally feel like I need that sort of learning environment, but I'm not knocking anybody that does. However, I don't feel like spending thousands of dollars on a tarot masterclass would necessarily be worth it. Like, what information do those people have to present in their masterclass that hasn't already been presented before in cheaper, more affordable, or even free versions, you know? They might have a new perspective, that's fine, I get that, but thousands of dollars is just not something that I personally am willing to spend my money on, and I don't think it's ethical that someone charged that much money. So, I'm all caught up on the chat. Is everyone doing okay? I hope everyone is staying safe if you're in the area of the fires. I know I mentioned that at the beginning of the live stream, but I know not everyone caught that. So I hope you're all doing all right. Have you ever had an ethical dilemma when you read tarot? Like, if for anybody that reads tarot for other people, have you ever had that happen? I'd be really interested for anyone in the live chat, if you had that happen and you want to talk about it. Also, for anyone that's watching later, if you want to leave that in the comments below, or podcast listeners, reach out to me on whatever form of social media you're on, or even just my email. I also want to mention really quick, because we're past 45 minutes now, but if you don't follow me on social media, you won't know that my plans for the next couple of weeks are kind of up in the air. I didn't even know if I was going to be able to do this live stream today. We had another death in the family, and that makes 2 in the span of a couple of weeks, and we are going to have to fly back home for the services. My daughter actually just got back. She went with my parents because they flew back home for my grandma's service, and now we're going to have to do it all over again. So if for some reason you don't follow me on social media and I miss a live stream or I miss a podcast episode, it's because I'm not home to do it. And that is what's going on there. Yeah, I don't have any more specific information about that right now because we don't know when we're leaving and we don't know when the services and anything are. And I probably won't have very much notice. So if you want to keep up to date on that sort of stuff, follow me on social media. All of those links are in the description and in the show notes. Let's see. Curses and Prayer said, I had someone who kept asking me the same question over and over again, and I finally had to tell her, I'm not going to read on this for you anymore. Yes. Okay. So when I first started setting up my shop, last year, I think it was, I posted that I was giving away free tarot readings in exchange for reviews. And I did the tarot readings, and I read for someone that I didn't know. They just reached out to me on Twitter. So I read for them. They came back and they told me that my reading made no sense and it was horrible and they hated it. And I was like, that's really harsh, but okay. And I did a little bit of investigating, and it turns out this person had been going around and asking other tarot readers over and over and over again the same question. So at that point, I'm like, the universe is probably just screwing with you right now because you won't leave the situation well enough alone. So I didn't really feel too bad about that. Thank you, everyone. It's okay. I'm okay right now. But it'll probably hit me eventually. I don't want to say I don't deal well with death. It's the emotion part. I mean, it's really difficult to explain. Like right now, I'm removed from the situation, so I'm okay. But I know once I get there and once I get entrenched in the situation, I will not be okay. So if no one else has questions or things that they want to share, I will go ahead and end it here. Thank you all so much for joining me for the live. I love to see the chats going on. I love to see you talking with me, but also speaking with each other. That is why I do these lives. Part of the reason why I do these lives. So I will see you when I see you, because I can't say that I'll be here next week. Oh, hello, someone new. Hi, Shaman Moon. I really love your video on the goddess Bridget. Really helped me a lot. Started my relationship with her. Thank you so much for that video. You are so welcome. I love hearing things like that. This is why I do what I do, to be of service to the people in the community in any way that I can. And Bridget, she's not going anywhere for me. I definitely plan on speaking about her more in the future. So I hope you stick around, and I hope that you find my other videos helpful as well. But I am going to go ahead and end it here, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye.